Welcome to JDD News. We have just received information about the recent battle Operation Torch, the invasion of North Africa. We're going to our reporter David to get some more information about the Allied side.
Thank you, Davidson. I'm here in Morocco hours after what seems to be the end of the war. We know that the American generals Dwight D. Eisenhower and George C. Marshall favored direct invasion of Europe from Britain, but British Prime Minister Winston Churchill and his generals were set against this direct invasion. Instead, Roosevelt and Churchill agreed to a combined attack on French Northwest Africa. This all led to a pincer movement from the US and Britain on November 8th, with US troops landing in Morocco's Atlantic coast and British troops landing in the Algerian Mediterranean coast, specifically in the cities of Oran and Algiers. There was also a battalion-sized airborne landing near Oran with the mission to seize 2 airfields.
Okay, do we have any information on why they fought in the first place?
That's a good question. The Allies intended to draw Axis forces away from the Eastern Front, thus relieving pressure on the hard-pressed Soviet Union. The operation was a compromise between US and British planners, as the latter felt that the American advocated landing in Northern Europe was premature and would lead to disaster at this stage of the war.
Okay, so why did the Allies fight so hard to keep the Axis away?
The Allies had many reasons, with those being wanting to come in behind the Axis forces fighting the British in Egypt to disrupt the Vichy French control of Northwest Africa. Now, the Vichy French was an independently governed part of France that allowed the Nazi regime under the terms of the 1940 armistice. Now, the Allies also wanted to open the Mediterranean Sea for Allied shipping, restore French forces to the Allied cause, and, like mentioned before, take pressure off the embattled Russians.
Let's hear more information about why the Axis want to have North Africa. We'll be going to our reporter, Jaden, to get that information. So Jaden, why did the Axis want North Africa?
That is a good question, Davidson. I'm reporting to you here in Algeria. The Axis powers were located in the Mediterranean Sea, and control over this region will allow the Axis to influence naval and air routes between Europe and the Middle East. This control of North Africa will allow them to exert pressure on the Middle East and influence more oil regions. It also provided them with resources such as oil and minerals, which are crucial for sustaining the Axis war effort.
Okay, so what was the Axis battle plan? What were the strategies they were trying to employ to win?
The Axis strategy during Operation Torch was primarily defensive. While the Allies were coming in through Oran and here in Algeria, the Axis powers, most specifically Italy, were fighting back to push out the Allies.
Okay, let's go back to David to find out more about the Allies' battle plan. So David, what were the Allies' battle plan with Operation Torch?
Now, as I said earlier, the Allies troops landed in Morocco and Algeria, but their goal was to secure these locations for further operations. In order to do that, Operation Torch was divided into 3 different task forces: the Western Task Force, the Central Task Force, and the Eastern Task Force. The goal of the Western Task Force was to secure Casablanca because it had an important port and airfield. The goal of the Central Task Force was to capture Iran from the Axis powers, which had key airfields and ports. And the goal of the Eastern Task Force was to quickly secure the Algiers and its surrounding area to support operations toward Tunisia.
So what does the aftermath of this battle look like to you?
Well, remember that Operation Torch was not just one battle, but a multitude of battles happening at the same time, consisting of 107,000 troops from the USA and Great Britain combined. However, the civilian casualties and wounded are high like any battle in this war. In this operation, 1,825 people died and 2,717 were wounded, including 1,346 French people and 479 Americans.
So David, one final question for you. This is the questions that the viewers at home and Miss Love's class are asking. Did the Allies win this battle?
Yes, the Allies did win these series of battles. They were able to push out Italy and the Axis powers back up into Europe, allowing the Allies to have control of Africa, as well as relieving pressure from Russia.
Thank you, David. We'll see you later. Now, Jaden, how does the aftermath of these battles look like to you?
The Axis powers had 125,000 troops consisting of Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy. Even though the Axis powers had more troops than the Allies in these battles, the Axis still ended up losing this fight. The Axis powers ended up with over 1,300 people dead and wounded because of this conflict.
How did the Axis powers lose these defensive battles?
The Axis powers lose this battle due to the failure of help from the Vicky French. The Allies were able to bring the Vicky French down with an agreement, taking them out of the battle, which put the Axis power in a very bad position. Losing an army of this size was not something the Axis expected. So when it happened, it was too late to do anything.
What does this loss mean to the Axis powers?
Well, the Axis power lost a very strong point of interest. North Africa not only allowed this Axis the control of the Mediterranean Sea, but also gave them valuable resources they needed for future conflicts. So losing North Africa in Operation Torch End is one of the worst defeats that the Axis have faced.
Thank you, Jaden. And thank you for watching JDD News. This is all that we have, and we'll be back at 8 p.m. to tell you more about Hitler's movements in Western Europe.